Telecast, the TV industry news review.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to this week's show. This week on Telecast, Laurine Garaude, Director of Midem's television division, joins me alongside Clint Stinchcomb, President and CEO at CuriosityStream. And the TV industry's favourite futurist, K7 Media's Girts Licis, examines the outlook for trade shows. It's all coming up on this week's Telecast. So we have two industry leaders on the show this week who were at the cutting edge of content business developments. Laurine Garaude is Director of Midem's television division. Laurine has direct responsibility for the company's portfolio of international television and digital content events. This includes the entertainment content markets MIP TV and MIPCOM, annually held in Cannes, France, as well as MIP Cancun and MIP China. Also joining me is Clint Stinchcomb, President and CEO of CuriosityStream. Clint heads up all strategy and operations for the factual streamer, which was launched by John Hendricks, founder of Discovery, in 2015. CuriosityStream now boasts over 13 million subscribers and features thousands of documentary features and series exploring the full category of the non-fiction genre, including science, nature, history, technology, society, lifestyle, and more. So Laurine and Clint, welcome to Telecast.
Hello. Great to be here.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Laurine, coming to you first. As we all know, MIPCOM has for years been, the axis on which the content industry revolves every October, the key date in the industry calendar. Obviously, COVID-19 put pay to MIP TV earlier in the year. Can you bring us up to date with the latest news on what's happening with MIPCOM this October?
As you just said, MIPCOM has been the biggest week in the industry calendar for a long time, and now it's the 36th MIPCOM coming up.
Yeah.
And this year we feel more strongly than ever how important it is to support the industry in this particular time. And it's a lot of hard work to be delivering this MIPCOM, of course, a very quality event, safe, and also to have a program that really meets the moment. So we're all extremely motivated here, and we're working with huge purpose to deliver this MIPCOM. The good news is that Europe is doing much better now. Here in France, like I said, I'm sitting in my office, and it's really good to be back in the office. I think it makes a big difference to be able to see people. And of course, we work very well online as well. But just to say, so France has tremendously changed in the last month. The restaurants are open, schools are fully open since last week, and the cinemas as well. Of course, Europe is opening up to international travel. The French government has confirmed what we expected, which is that trade shows and major events will now be officially validated, we'll say, starting September 1st. So that's not a surprise to us, but it's always good to have that official confirmation. So all is looking very good in that sense, and it's really getting ourselves back to, we won't say normal, but we'll say to the new normal, and defining what that is. As we all know, it's really important to be able to meet in person. We can all work really well online, and the industry is certainly doing that right now, doing really innovative work. But there's a need to meet in person, and it's our duty to be able to deliver that in the safest way. And that's what we are so focused right now, is to delivering that and creating this new normal, because we don't know how long this is going to last, do we?
I mean, a lot of experts are saying that we're going to have to get used to this, living with this virus for whoever knows how long. You're right. It is that new normal that we've all been speaking about. You mentioned that trade shows have got the go-ahead. That's fantastic news. There was a law that the French government brought in about gatherings over a certain number in September. Has that now been passed?
That's
and from
right.
1st of September, there's no limit on the number of people that can come together?
Yes, it's over 5,000 people.
MIPCOM this year, can you take us through the practical aspects of how the event will work? Because presumably we still have to be socially distanced. Do we have to wear masks, for example? How will delegate traffic flow be managed? What's the practical details we need to know?
Okay. So I'll tell you as much as I can. Reed Midem is part of Reed Exhibitions, which is part of a larger group, RELEX. And Reed Exhibitions organizes over 500 events per year in 30 different countries. I just say that because we are working together as a large group to define how to create and run trade shows in this new normal. So it's not an individual effort, it's a collective effort, pooling experience from around the world, working with trade bodies around the world, medical experts, and of course the different governments. It's a huge project. Much of it has already been defined. Reed Midem is now working individually in terms of what we'll be doing in Cannes, but we're working with the group at all times, and also with the industry bodies in France and the government. It's a complex framework, but that's really what's important to do. And in fact, this MIPCOM is probably going to be the first international market and this industry to take place. We take it as a huge responsibility. As I said, we're working with industry bodies. There has been a proposal to the government, recommendations as to how we think we and the other events businesses, how we think they should be run.
Yeah.
We are now waiting for final validation from the government. We are drawing up what we think are the regulations, the ways to do things that make sense. Maybe our rules will be stricter than the government, who knows? But within the show venue, we are regulating traffic flow and the capacity across the exhibition hall. We'll be creating different entrances and exits. It won't be in the same place. There will be new design spaces in terms of clubs and lounges, open spaces, much more open space. The conferences will be run at 50% capacity.
Yeah.
We will not go over that. We will also be cleaning them, disinfecting them after every session. Okay, so for 45 minutes, we have to use that time between sessions to clean. So it changes the way we actually program the conferences. Face masks will be mandatory. At least that's the way we're seeing things right now. And they will be available on distribution points. There will be daily disinfection, of course, of areas all the time. Hand sanitizer. I'm looking at a list here because it's impossible to remember all this by heart. Registration. We are developing a print at home badge so that people don't have to queue. And those who do have to queue, of course, there'll be social distancing. Social distancing throughout, we're looking at 1 meter social distance throughout the exhibition everywhere. We will be very rigorous about this. It's very important. Clearly, it's nothing more important than health and safety. And the show will be different. I mean, it's obviously going to be different. Our main focus is going to be on allowing for these buyer and seller meetings safely. That is priority number one. And we will not be doing major events, big parties, big gatherings where you can't have social distancing. That is not going to happen. We're looking at smaller formats to see what can be done outside. We're not finished in that realm, and we also have to see how things develop.
Would you be looking at using like the outside spaces as well of the actual palais? Because obviously there's often a very large external area as well.
Yes, we're looking at how we can do that. So it's still work in progress because we have to do every part one at a time. But it's like I said, we're looking at how we can use space differently in many places.
Well, no, it must be a hugely logistical challenge.
But the good news is that Cannes is a city. It's not a big urban city like others, and it allows for a lot of outside spaces, given good weather that we will hope for. But so there's ability to be outside a lot. Of course, we're working with the city of Cannes, with the CEMEC, the Palais, who are being also extremely strict as to the rules and regulations. They will be auditing everything to make sure everything is compliant to new standards. And we're all working together in a very, very tight partnership because it is essential for all that this delivers well.
Okay. But in terms of the global industry, I mean, obviously coronavirus is still at a high level in many places around the world. The US are having trouble suppressing it in certain states, and South America, for example, is still having real problems. And a number of buyers from these territories may also have like company travel restrictions as well. How will being at MIPCOM allow distributors and sales businesses to access those buyers if they're not physically there?
Okay, well, currently many buyers are signing up. Some territories may not be able to travel, the US and LATAM, for instance, and hopefully things will improve by then. But supposing that it's not possible, we are certainly being flexible. And that's why we are in the midst of creating MIPCOM Online Plus, which is to enrich the experience for all people who are in Cannes, but also to allow for people who may not be able to be there to access the market, albeit in a different way, but to be able to be reachable within a larger MIPCOM.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that, how the digital aspect of the event will work? Because obviously it's going to be a blended event, if you like, so it's part real world.
Hybrid. It will be hybrid.
Hybrid. Yeah. Okay.
And we're learning how to do that. But the thing is that, okay, so MIPCOM Online Plus, the way we're approaching it is as a very big content showcase, which is really what MIPCOM is. So we will be featuring content from exhibitors. Exhibitors will have a virtual, we would call it room or virtual space area, where they'll be able to highlight the programs that they will be presenting at MIPCOM. So it'll be accessible to all buyers, whether they're in MIPCOM or not, physically in Cannes or not, so that there'll be tracking possible. And I can't give you much more detail there, but a big content showcase from exhibitors, as well as parallel programming from what is happening in MIPCOM. The world premieres, the market screenings. We're launching a new event called the Global Upfronts and keynotes. So there will be parallel programming. And we're also creating an enhanced database that we will have video conferencing possible, that will be supplementing the database we have. We're introducing a new network that will be meeting the moment as we need it to.
Okay.
In October.
So there's the potential for a physical salesperson who may be in Cannes through this platform to access a buyer internationally, whether it's in South America or whether it's in the States or Asia, etc.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Exactly.
Can you take us through the highlights of this new normal MIPCOM, if you like?
First of all, as I said, we're doing all the world premieres, market screenings, new global upfronts, and will bring an exclusive first look to new productions in progress or finished and in all genres. And that's to kickstart sales, as people need to, really the focus at this MIPCOM is on the sales, the ability to do business. So to have the maximum connections, to help buyers discover new content, and the distributors to show new content that they have in all genres. And the third thing is inspiration, which we all think is particularly important this year. The fact that we're all extremely passionate about what we do in this industry, I think that's been shown in the last few months, this love for television. But on a greater level, there's been so much happening recently that the importance of global action for social change is one we think it's the place and time, MIPCOM, to federate the industry to engage on how we can continue to, and as a responsibility of an industry, to bring upon social change. This is not new to MIPCOM. It's not new to the MIPS, but it is something that we want to bring to a higher level. And some things we'll be announcing later. But the things that I can tell you now is that the SDG award, which actually we were going to do at MIP TV, and which we're not able to, obviously, the first Sustainable Development Goal MIP award is going to Sky Jeremy Darroch, and he will be at MIPCOM. And we are expanding the Diversified TV Awards, which will be in their fourth year. So this is, of course, extremely pertinent and timely given what's happening in the world.
So we talked about Cannes, the city of Cannes, a little bit earlier. One of the key points around MIPCOM is that serendipity. We've talked to various executives over the last few weeks on telecast, and they've talked about how meeting someone on the croisette or in a restaurant or a bar that they haven't had a meeting scheduled with, and they saw them, and then that chance meeting has then led to something, happening, whether that's a commission or whether that's, some huge distribution deal or whatever. But that serendipity is something that's, you can only get from real world events. And obviously the way that the city of Cannes is operating is also really important to that. So what about restaurants? What about hotels? What's the protocol there?
Okay, we'll be actually preparing a document that's going to be very detailed in the next week or so regarding all our guidelines and including City of Cannes. So it'll be about hotels, restaurants, the airport, taxi. So we're putting that together right now, and so our clients and everybody will be able to access very soon. But just to say some examples, first of all, the City of Cannes, it is their priority to have business tourism and everybody back in Cannes. The mayor of Cannes has been extremely active during this whole pandemic. His priority is making sure that Cannes welcomes visitors safely. For instance, in the hotels, of course, social distancing. Rooms will stay vacant for 24 hours between checkout and new occupancy. There'll be online check-in and checkout procedures, face masks, policy for staff, increase cleaning operations, limit the number of people allowed per elevator, and of course, social distancing throughout.
Yeah.
Restaurants, same thing, respect of the 1 meter distance from other customers and teams. There'll be hydroalcoholic gel solutions available at the entrances, mandatory wearing of masks, sanitary facilities disinfected several times a day, etc. And that's just partial list. I know taxis will have plexiglass and wear masks and have gel. So it's everybody. Everybody is working on every step of the journey from plane to hotel to venue, so that every part is thought through.
We've heard from previous guests about the way that Paris has been opening its streets to restaurants, and they're being on the streets, street restaurants popping up everywhere. And I believe that also that's going to be the same in Soho in London over the next few days. That's going to be becoming a fixture. Is that the same in Cannes? I mean, are the inside of restaurants open, or is it just the external side of the restaurant?
In France, everything is open now.
Okay. We've talked as well on telecast over the last few months about in-person trade markets, and this has really created a little bit of an uncertain future for certainly for some. We've seen all of the regional events cancelled this year. How will Reed Midem adapt to that uncertain future for in-person trade events?
We already are, to the extent that we're inventing a new normal, which we will be introducing in Cannes and Midem. But the whole industry is having to adapt and finding new ways of working. Production is changed, and some things probably remain changed. And the same for trade shows, is that people may travel less, and therefore may make choices, probably will make choices as to when it's the most effective to travel. Events that are the most efficient, that can be a one-stop shop, probably will have an advantage. In terms of carbon footprint, if you travel to one place and have many, many meetings, and that's efficient, that is better than traveling all around all the time. I do think people will travel less, but the need for meeting face-to-face will not change.
Yeah.
I think people will continue to work digitally more so than they were. I think we all see that Zoom really does work, and that you can do a lot online, much, much more than we had ever imagined. We put together MIP TV Online Plus online from everybody's homes in the midst of the confinement. People will do amazing things online.
Yeah.
So that component for trade shows, and we're seeing all these many, many virtual trade events happening, and we're doing our own versions of digital. So that, I think, will continue to be a very important part of the mix and will not go away, even when COVID goes away. We're seeing a transformation brought upon by the need to change.
Okay, Clint, coming to you. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us. Now, we've seen surges in subscriber numbers for Netflix and Disney Plus and other SVODs during the lockdown. I'm assuming that's been a similar story with CuriosityStream?
It has. We've certainly benefited from quarantine, people being at home, people looking for, excellent entertainment options. In the case of CuriosityStream, we actually added more direct subscribers in the first quarter of this year than the company did in the first 2 years of its existence.
Wow.
So that was extraordinary. That's a combination of many effects, including the fact that we hired toward the end of last year a new head of growth, young, super smart guy named Devin Emery that's been looking over our pure direct-to-consumer subscription service. He's made a number of adjustments there, including, eliminating our free trial. And so, we feel like at, $3 a month or $20 a year, there's not a lot of risk in that decision, especially when you consider what you get for that. So that, combined with people being at home, led to a incredible first quarter. And then, the month of April, that was our best single month, in the history of the company. So to put it in perspective, we had more subscribers the first quarter of this year than the company did in its first 2 years of existence.
Right. Can you take us through CuriosityStream's content acquisition strategy and how you compete with cables and other streamers to acquire the best factual content?
As people may or may not know, CuriosityStream was founded by John Hendricks in 2015. John was the original founder of Discovery Channel and Discovery Communications. And, John's love his entire life has been really, pure factual entertainment. What John saw while he was at Discovery is he saw a trend, where historical factual networks had sort of abandoned their charter and moved more toward, reality programming. So that opened up an opportunity, to provide to people a service that really programmed to the full factual menu. And so what we mean by that is content that is in the category science, history, technology, natural history, society, and lifestyles. Those are the 6 big pillars of the factual category. And obviously there's, lots and lots of subgenres underneath that. But, our approach is, let's be mindful of that exact charter. Let's program to the full category. And so the challenge then becomes, okay, how do you fill out that category? And then, based on what people are watching, how do you pull from some areas and supplement in others? At the beginning of Curiosity, there were a lot of content that was available in the factual space, at really palatable prices because the category had been abandoned by people. So John and the team were able initially to, acquire some great content and then begin to layer on originals. So what's interesting is that dynamic still, exists in part today. There's still, some tremendous factual programming that's available for acquisition, and we're incredibly opportunistic around that. It's the platform, it's the content, and then the management of that content that makes CuriosityStream special, including using data to make sure that all of our users love the service. So, when we're considering programming, we have a formula that we use that takes into account a variety of metrics, including completion rate, start rate, percentage of the video that people are actually watching through, and then we layer that over the total audience, as well as across specific interest cohorts. So it's, there's a lot of science, but there's also art to it, right? I mean, everything is art and science. We feel like we're, the balance today is more in the science category, no pun intended. It's a continual process, and first filter is a piece of content that people would consider, within the full factual category.
Okay, so it's pure play factual.
Yes.
And so assuming that you don't have the same kind of budgets as Netflix, that's my assumption.
Right.
How do you compete with them to get the very best factual content?
I'm not sure anybody has the budgets to compete with Netflix today, right? If they're going to spend $17 billion a year on content, that's just in a different stratosphere. And so, they do dip their toes in the water as it relates to factual content to some extent. However, I think that, our strength is that's, as you said, we're pure play factual. That's what we do. We have, a great content team, collection of people who are focused on original programming, focused on acquisitions, focused on content creation, that's all they've done for their entire career. So we have 15 great people in that space who have their ear to the ground, are out talking to lots of people. We become aware of what's out there, and I think we're able to manage our content spend, as efficiently as anybody. And so I think it obviously requires a spectrum of talent, right? You need great creative people, great EPs, and especially in the factual space, it's not always easy to take an idea and make it commercially appealing, right? And so I think there's a lot of work and that goes in on the editing side and on the EP side, and then on the business affairs side, obviously, since we don't have $17 billion to spend, we need to be careful and strategic about how we allocate our spend. And the good news is, now that because we've been able to grow the business at the rate that we have, we're able to spend considerably more money each year. And while we have a very data-driven focus, with each passing year, we have the ability to take a few more bigger swings.
Presumably, co-productions have been an important part of the mix up to this point.
Without a doubt, they've been an important part of the mix, and they'll be a huge part of the mix going forward. And the way that we look at the world is we have our direct-to-consumer service, CuriosityStream, which provides people with over 3,100 titles, HD titles, 4K titles, all of the categories that I mentioned. But we also have a distributed service, pay TV service, and that's in over 80 countries today. So our proposition to distributors is, we'll convey to you a very broad scope of rights, linear rights, mobile rights, lots of on-demand titles. We're not going to parse every right like legacy networks do. And what we're looking for in exchange for that is some kind of annual fixed fee. So that provides us with a level of long cycle revenue, so that we know we can pour more money into original content. So with that business, with our sponsorship business, our program sales business, our corporate partnership business, that provides us with multiple avenues of content monetization. And so then, as we're looking at big content projects, and we'll be spending dramatically more, than we have in the previous years. Going forward, we look to say, okay, what parts of the world do we not necessarily need the full scope of rights? It could be because maybe we can't monetize it through our distributed service. Maybe it's we're not as good as some of the other people, with the direct service. And so, in territories like that, we're happy to, sell off those rights in sort of a pre-sale agreement.
Okay.
But it's exciting. It's really, it's such a unique time. And because of, I think, John Hendrick's sort of just, undying belief in the power of factual entertainment, we've been able to pursue a path that, unlike the 400 other services, on-demand services that are out there, we're not relying on just one line of revenue.
Yeah.
We're building five distinct interrelated businesses.
I mean, in terms of original content versus acquisitions, can you give us an idea of what the level is, the relationship between those two is at the moment, in terms of how many or what percentage of original content are you commissioning versus and co-productions as opposed to finished programming?
So we'll have a higher volume of acquisitions, obviously, going forward, but the vast majority of our content spend will be on original content creation.
Right.
So whereas at the beginning it was probably maybe 20 to 30% of the money went toward original content creation, and 70 to 80 toward acquisitions. That number will flip.
Okay.
You'll see that number flip, over the next year and going forward. And we're really excited about that because we feel like, we've done, some excellent acquisition agreements for some, terrific content that, we feel like was sort of underserved in the marketplace. But going forward, we're engaged with a number of partners right now, talking about some big projects to fill in some areas that where we think can really make a meaningful impact on our direct service.
Okay, so we've talked on previous shows about, because of the halt in production and the relative ease, I say relative ease, of starting factual production versus drama production, then perhaps now is the time for unscripted to really come out of the shadows. Over the last few years, the drama world has obviously really dominated the content industry, and now perhaps there is that opportunity for unscripted. I mean, how will CuriosityStream take the opportunity of that in terms of you're going to have a lot of factual content coming through. You've got a whole load of new subscribers. How will you capitalize on that and keep those subscribers?
Yeah. Well, what we found is, the kind of highly promotable original content tends to make people aware of CuriosityStream, brings in new subscribers, but really the strong volume of content that we have in the library keeps them. And so a great example is, we recently premiered History of Home with Nick Offerman. And so History of Home is this, beautiful, stunning series. I think sort of CuriosityStream at its best. We look at, essentially what makes our houses homes. And, we go to Hearst Castle, we go to the Gamble House, but it's really a global franchise. We did History of Food last year. We had a lot of success with that, working with, a production partner, Roller Coaster Productions there. And History of Home is really, I think generated, appeal beyond what we even anticipated. And I think it's a perfect combination because the content is production values are ultra high quality. The story is interesting, and then what could be potentially a staid topic. Homes and rooms in each home, and the history of each home, and all of these things. I think that Nick Offerman and his sort of understated, incredibly funny and humorous approach to things really provides an excellent balance. So we'll continue. We actually we had some productions that had to shut down, but we have a lot of productions that are not shutting down.
Right.
And and whether around technology, around engineering, there's certain areas of the U.S. where production is raging, right? And so we take advantage of of those areas. There's a lot to say for proximity. So we take advantage of that. So we feel really good about what we have coming down the pipe as it relates to original programming, what we have coming down the pike as it relates to acquisitions. I mean, just because we don't say, okay, we're going to focus on acquisitions for the next month and then, not do anything for the next year. We try to be incredibly thoughtful and opportunistic around that. So we're always looking.
And you mentioned Nick Offerman. Is talent going to be more and more important to CuriosityStream original programming going forward, or is that not so much of a focus?
I don't think it's necessarily as important as it is for so many linear networks that are 100% ratings driven. I mean, we're ratings conscious, obviously, and consumption conscious. And the beautiful thing about having our own direct service is we know what works, and we can deliver those types of learnings to our MVPD partners and wireless partners. We will look for authentic, credible, genuine hosts who we believe elevate CuriosityStream. You'll see over the next year, over the next 2 years, over the next 3 years, more exciting hosts. Every program that CuriosityStream greenlights does not have to have a huge host.
We talked about interruption in production. How will you approach this anticipated shortage of fresh content that's perhaps coming through the pipeline in a few months' time?
So we've been focused on that for a long time, believe it or not. I mean, I think we were mindful of the coming pandemic early on. Maybe some of that's a function of being in Washington, D.C., but, we were talking about it here as early as, first and second week of January. So we didn't know the scope and scale of it, but, we were thinking about it. And, so as a result of that, as I said, we have a lot of acquisition content, that will be coming, into CuriosityStream. We have a lot of commission programming that we've been working on. A lot of stuff's in post. Other projects are not stopping. And then, we have our own internal production apparatus that heavily focuses on two franchises that provide a lot of short and mid-form content. One is called, Bright Now, and the other is Breakthrough. Breakthrough is about, scientific discoveries, black hole, this kind of thing. More timely discoveries, and then, we're able to layer in.
Yeah.
We're able to layer in at times library content to provide more perspective to that discovery, for example. But, in light of that kind of three-pronged approach and the existing library that we have, we feel good about how we will power through this. Companies that were accelerating into COVID, and we're able to kind of power through and keep accelerating. will come out even stronger. I think companies that were decelerating into it, and print companies, whether it's, Vox or Meredith or, Axios or Vice or, these companies, even maybe digital in part, but we saw a lot of companies start to lay off people and, have real challenges. So I think that, if you were decelerating going into it, you may be decelerating coming out of it as well. So what we've tried to do is just, make sure that we kept that acceleration level. I think our people, I'm just delighted with, how well our companies react. People got really good at Zoom. I mean, I'm older than most people at CuriosityStream, and I've, spent my career. I just always believed that you had to see people in person. You just had, especially for new business, got to get out there, got to travel. And so it's the longest time in my life that I've ever gone without being on a plane. And, it's been rather delightful in many ways. But but I will say that, our people have gotten really good at Zoom. Yeah. Really good at conference calls, and that will never replace, person-to-person contact. But I think it has made us sort of reevaluate, how we do business to a certain extent. And I mean, and as far as our engineers and our data scientists and all of those men and women, I mean, they've worked remotely forever, so it was no real adjustment for them in part. Yeah.
Will your buying team be attending MIPCOM this year?
Virtually, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most likely virtually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Coming to your story of the week this week, Laurine. This is about the BBC's new diversity commitment. Talk us through that.
The BBC announced that it will prioritize spending of £100 million of its existing commissioning budget over the next 3 years on diverse and inclusive content. And it's also outlined plans for a new mandatory 20% diverse talent target in all new network commissions starting April 2021. This is in direct response to the killing of George Floyd, as says BBC Chief Tony Hall in the article, and that it's to fight against this systemic racism. And it's so important. A company so powerful, as huge and powerful as the BBC, to be driving change, and they can do that. That's why I picked that article, because I think it's so important that it makes a profound difference. That they're talking about investments in stories that are diverse and inclusive, but also storytellers that are. And they talk about they have to fulfill 2 or 3 conditions, whether it's the producer or the talent or the storyline. I think it's a very powerful statement. They say they will be doing more following, and I think that's why I chose the article. Also, Netflix is supporting diversity in that way. They've put on their homepage a collection of 45 plus Black Lives Matter programming. Yeah. So I chose that because I think it's extremely timely, very important, and links into the way we want to highlight the importance of the industry in really driving change at a time that the world really needs it.
Absolutely, and I think we've seen this, and we've spoken again a few times about public service broadcasters and how they've really come to the fore, not only since the social pressures are following the George Floyd killing, but also all the way through the COVID crisis and how they've supported people from education and information. And that has been really welcome, I think. And lots of people have actually chosen, public service broadcasting as their hero of the week as well. And it's great to see them showing leadership. And hopefully this is something that will be reflected by other national public service broadcasters all around the world. Mm-hmm. So, okay, fantastic. So let's go on to your first story of the week, Clint. This is about sports in the US and sports coming back. Tell us about that.
Well, I think that there have been a lot of stops and starts as they've talked about it. And so baseball, they finally agreed. It's like, okay, they're going to come back. They're going to play a 60-game season. So the super agent, Scott Boras, who has worked on both sides. He's worked for the players. He's been a general manager. He represents over 100 players today. He's been very involved in this. And what Scott has said is that, in order for baseball games to start, it will require about 125 people. So the games initially will be played, nobody in the stands. Obviously, they'll be filmed and And I suspect that the ratings on television will be extraordinary.
Yeah.
But it'll be a 60 game season instead of the traditional 162 game season, and I think it would have started earlier. The biggest challenge, of course, is always around what the compensation is going to be, right? And so initially the owners had gone out with a share of revenue proposal, and the big challenge with that was just getting to a definition of revenue. Is it the revenue from the ballpark, or is it? So typically, I think people think about revenue from the ticket sales and then TV rights. But for so many owners today, it's just so much more than that. That's, I don't want to say off the books, but perhaps in a different set of books, which was really difficult. It made it difficult to get to agreement for them. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of sympathy for millionaires and billionaires negotiating in the public, but nonetheless, it was kind of interesting to watch and see what the owners would consider part of an actual revenue bucket and what they would, right? Where does a hotel that's adjacent to the stadium go, a casino, an RSN, that type of thing. So I thought it was interesting with, so I think baseball has a plan. They've got a lot of protocols in place.
Okay.
The NBA is looks like they're coming back. They're going to essentially quarantine everybody in one area, whereas baseball will play regional games. There'll be some cross-league play potentially as well. So those schedules are being worked out, but I suspect they'll figure it out. I just think there are a lot of hardworking people associated with sports, right? That are looking to go back to work, and so I think that's a positive, and I think they have the right protocols in place. And so I think baseball's coming back, and American football, they have a plan to come back. And so
they must have exposed a huge weakness in cable, right? I mean, the sport's been away for 3 months or so. It's been very similar right across Europe. Not in the UK. We were talking to Clive from C21 last week about Premier League and the fact that now the Premier League is actually going to have to hand a load of money back to a lot of the broadcasters. Presumably, that's going to be the same. Those conversations are happening in the States as well.
Every broadcaster of consequence will become a sports network in part, right? Because there's incredible demand, incredible pent up demand, and I think that you see it in these, and just you see record ratings in just some of the sports that have come out already, whether it's UFC or NASCAR or some of these sort of made for TV golf events. So I think that we'll see more sports on television in the U.S. and probably everywhere else than we've ever seen in our life.
Any chance of any sports on CuriosityStream anytime soon?
Well, I'll tell you. So we don't do live sports, but we do sports stories. Essentially, celebration of the human spirit.
Fantastic. So, Laurine, I'm sure you're familiar with the show format. It's time for you to nominate your hero of the week.
That was difficult. I spent a lot of time thinking about it. My personal heroine, is Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern.
Okay.
So I have to mention her because of her groundbreaking work in family leave policies, because of the way she handled the shooting at Christchurch, in terms of passing a law banning semi-automatic weapons in less than a month after that terrible shooting, her exemplary way of handling the COVID crisis, and she headlined Global Pride this weekend. So, and she's effective. She's an empathetic leader, and she's a true inspiration to me. So I needed to say that. Now, professionally, another level, you ask hero, and it's hard to say one. Shonda Rhimes is also a great hero for me because for a very long time, and she was a Personality of the Year in 2016 at MIPCOM, and that was a great moment. And she's changed the face of TV, supporting, encouraging women everywhere and diversity, and created some of the best loved television shows. And she's actually influenced more and more women doctors, people doing medicine in the U.S. Since Grey's Anatomy. And we certainly need doctors these days, don't we?
We certainly do. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. So, Clint, your hero of the week.
Yes, I think that. Well, I have to applaud Disney Plus because they took a page out of CuriosityStream's business and they announced that they would be eliminating free trials across most of their platforms. And, we found that has worked extraordinarily well. I have to credit our head of growth, Devin Emery, for doing that. And I suspect it will work quite well for Disney as well. It's a $7 a month service. People know what it is, right? And, overwhelming majority of people know what Disney stands for. It's not like you're subscribing to something that is a surprise that you need to try out. Yeah. So I got hat tip to Disney.
All right.
for eliminating the free trial.
Okay. And Laurine, who or what are you telling to get in the bin?
Well, this is really very trite, but it's COVID-19 because I
thought you might say that.
It's just invaded my life everywhere. Hopefully I don't get it. But still, I mean, just for what it's done to this world, the deaths, the disruption, there's some good in it. Makes us have to look at things differently and have to improve things. I think we've all had maybe a bit too much hubris, thinking we were all, in a world that could be controlled. In fact, we see we can't control it, and we have to learn to live with that. But nonetheless, I'd rather it go away. So in the bin.
Absolutely. We can all agree with that. And Clint, tell us who you're chucking in the bin this week.
Well, I think that, because I've spent so much time in the on-demand space, that there have been a number of companies, a number of big companies that have raised a lot of money who sort of went into SVOD with kind of a field of dreams mentality, meaning, okay, if we build something, of course people will come, right? I mean, we're great executives, we know what people want, and I'm just going to put something out there and people are going to come to subscribe. And so, I think that Quibi certainly has, I suspect they'll likely figure it out at some point, but I think they would fall broadly into that bucket, as would some, larger media conglomerates who talk about getting into the streaming space. But what we found, it requires real deliberate work. The field of dreams does not work, and so I think, obviously you need a really compelling editorial proposition. I think you need, be able to amass a lot of content in a, economically viable way. And then I think you have to look at, very creative avenues of content monetization, so that you can continue to invest in programming and marketing. So I think the sort of field of dreams, the SVOD cabal, I'd throw them in the bin.
Okay. All right. Laurine, Clint, fantastic to have you both on the show. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being so frank with us, and it gives us some fantastic information, not only about MIPCOM, but also about CuriosityStream. So delighted that you could join us, and we're looking forward to seeing you in October.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you.
I really enjoyed it, Justin. It's been delightful talking to you and meeting you.
So once again, it's that time in the show to go over to Latvia to speak to TV's favourite futurist, K7 Media's Girts Licis. How are you doing, Girts?
Very well, Justin. Just blushing now after your introduction. How are you?
Well, I felt that you needed a little bit of flattery to set you on your way this week.
It helps now and then, yeah, true. This week, I think I will talk about markets, like I think you started already talking with Laurine earlier on the podcast. So I'll keep on this theme, right?
Okay, yeah, no, well, let's talk about markets. Go for it.
It's almost 4 months now since we have been learning to coexist with this new reality and change our personal and professional habits accordingly. And then undeniably, physical attendance of regular industry events has always been an integral part of our annual business cycle. And as trivial as it may sound, this is very much a relationship-based business and will probably stay like this despite anything. So what I find natural, but at the same time a bit annoying, if I'm completely honest with you, is that during the recent months, we have been seeing absolutely everyone from existing event organizers to publishers and analysts literally rushing into establishing their own online footprint and offering a variety of meeting and insight formats. It's just, I think, a bit overwhelming. It's if you want to try and follow everything that's happening in the industry, especially since many traditional events, possibly due to quite understandable fear to be missed in this midst of all this current noise, have amended their format, not just switching to providing an online event, but rather some kind of ongoing service, which is no more attached only to the regular event dates. And therefore, in June, we did a survey among the K7 Media's clientele, which consists of around, I would say, hundreds of broadcasters, platforms, producers, and distributors all around the world, with the aim to get a better understanding of their take on this. Have they been missing the physical attendance of the events? And if so, for what reasons? And we asked them how they see it in the future and what would make them to return to the once established order. And we also asked them briefly about their thoughts regarding the current online offering.
Okay, well, tell us the results then.
Well, more than half, around 55% of the respondents had been watching or listening to an online session curated by a TV event. The most popular among them appear to be MIP TV, Real Screen, Asian TV Market and Forum, and Edinburgh TV Festival. However, only less than a third, only 3 out of 10 respondents said they had attended an online market or conference which they would not have gone to in person anyway. The results suggest that, at least in a short term, the position of the established events is relatively strong. And unless the disruption continues into 2021, most of them should be able to retain its current customer base. MIP China, LA Screenings, and Connecta Fiction are also among those mentioned in this context. Interestingly, though, while around a half, 52% to be precise, of the surveyed companies are planning the same budget for attendance of markets and festivals next year, every 6 out of 7 individual respondents said they expected their companies to cut back on attendance. So I think we are likely to see smaller teams in attendance than before. On the other hand, we can actually expect some of the events to attract new customers thanks to the online offering, in particular, and attendees from more distant geographical regions, as well as smaller companies, which normally view these events as too resource-consuming to consider physical attendance, as the time and money spent on long-haul international travel, for instance, could be used more effectively. For this reason, I think it might be a good idea for these events to further develop a coexisting online offering, a tailored online product without cannibalizing the face-to-face event. The current online offering has been generally positively received, particularly since it provides more flexibility in respect to when and how it can be consumed than when a session needs to be squeezed into a busy schedule between business meetings during a big festival or a programming market. But the main concerns are not much different from those monitored at physical events. For example, when a session is dedicated to an expert discussion on global trends, for instance, of a specific genre or type of programming, that's what the audience really expects. But if a panel consists of representatives from different distribution companies only, what they often get instead is each panelist pushing their catalog and praising their own newest titles instead of focusing on a broader subject.
We've all been in those panels where it's just been only promotion of their own catalog and no insights. And you come out of that thinking, what a dull presentation, what a dull discussion, and I've just wasted an hour of my time.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Another issue we can see from the responses to the survey is repetitiveness and sometimes a lack of alternative opinions. The respondents would happily accept a broader range of speakers as they have tracked a handful of participants constantly rotating between the panels by different organizers.
So are there any signals about how much these lack of physical events have been impacting the business results?
Overall, the respondents do not ring the bells about their business suffering a dramatic drop specifically due to the lack of physical events. They are noting that the attendance at multiple markets is becoming less relevant, that there is not much impact in terms of number of closed deals. Some other factors like the drop of advertising revenues and fewer new products have left a more critical impact, and that they can cut costs and go for quality over quantity travel. But some respondents are claiming that online meetings can actually be more precise and their attendees can have more time for in-depth conversations. The things attendees are lacking the most are networking and building relationships in an informal way, obviously. They admit that building trust is harder digitally than in person. Markets also provide a possibility to interact on a one-to-one basis with a big number of potential clients in one place over a short period of time. It has to be noted, though, that while that is considered more efficient by some, others, particularly a few distributors, claim that territory visits can be a more effective alternative, as such dedicated trips usually mean a possibility to spend more time with a client and in a less rushed atmosphere, which provides a deeper conversation and understanding between the parties. And in many cases, it can be also most cost-effective than participating in some of the markets. The scope of impact can also depend on a specific region in focus, size of the company, or the stage of a specific project. For example, in Asia, business sometimes only proceeds through face-to-face meetings, not via a bunch of emails or phone calls. Thus, the COVID-19 situation and the absence of markets can be slowing down the speed of negotiations considerably. Lack of physical events may also leave a bigger impact on younger ventures, as those might be in greater need to grow their contact base and relationships, as well as find new business opportunities or avenues for collaboration. And that's where face-to-face introductions, networking, and informal socializing is making a bigger impact than digital communications will ever do. Some respondents have also emphasized the importance of genuine reactions when pitching, which one can get only during a physical interaction. And distributors also say that while library shows are generating their own inquiries without markets happening, it feels harder to get momentum behind new shows. According to one respondent, the normal launch cycle has been taken away. Normally, there is a pressure to get series ready for a market. And when you don't have that set deadline, it just drags on and takes longer because the pressure is gone and things just take longer on everything.
Yeah, and that urgency is taken away in the focus, isn't it? So what's going to get people to return to markets?
Well, according to our respondents, safe distancing and other precautionary measures guaranteed by event organizers come on top as the most important criteria, of course. However, to a great extent, the future of event attendance is down to a company-specific policy. The companies, in turn, take into account not only such macro factors as opening of borders, safe travel, government policies, quarantine measures, or local infection rates, but are also closely watching what others, including competition, is doing. And therefore, I think that it will require a strong positive signal from a number of anchor attendees before the rest of the industry is going to follow.
That is really interesting. And I think that going into this next cycle, we're coming into the summer now, but obviously the October, November time is a key time for the market. So things are loosening up, certainly in Europe. Lockdowns have been relaxed. So maybe it is time to get back to business in a physical sense as well as a digital sense.
Yeah, let's see. I think everybody is very much looking forward to at least the first event to get together again.
Yeah. Girts, fantastic. Really interesting to hear that research from your clients. Really interesting. And as ever, we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you. Speak soon.
Well, that's all, folks, for this week's show. Thanks as ever for listening. Please rate and subscribe to the show and share it with friends and colleagues. If you want to hear more about our advertising and sponsorship packages, please email justin@boomdialogue.com. That's justin@boomdialogue.com. Telecast was edited by Ian Chambers. We'll be back with another show next week. So in the meantime, stay safe.